Okay, hi everyone. My name is Ritwika Dasgupta and I'm from Delhi, India. Today I'm going to take you through my journey from fashion to marketing and how I kind of amalgamated my love for theater into this creative process. And yeah, I'll just quickly share my screen. I have to switch off my video for a bit so that the video quality is better. So bear with me. Yes. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, it is good.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay. So, welcome everybody. You know, the urge to say welcome back to my channel is very strong, especially coming from a girl who wanted to be a YouTuber since she was 15. But for the sake of you all, I will control that urge and instead say this. Welcome to my masterclass. I don't want to give you a glimpse into what we will discuss here on because I believe that the element of surprise is the best part of storytelling. So, let's move on. Let me start by telling you a bit about myself. I've started doing something this year. Instead of referring to myself as a product of my profession or the field that I'm in, I describe myself as a creative. You can say that I'm a self proclaimed emotive storyteller. So let's unpack that a bit. I gravitate towards feelings before form, people before platforms, and context before content. At the same time, I believe I am deeply introspective. I love research, frameworks, and sitting with questions that don't resolve quickly. For a long time, I thought that this could be a contradiction and that I had to choose between being creative and being practical or rigorous. Throughout this session, we are going to uncover how I turn these little quirks and contradictions into real strengths. And maybe some of you will relate to it. Some might find it low key silly as well. But I can assure you that I can be the loudest in a room full of creative voices and also alone in my reading nook with whispering echoes, at least for the most part. So, are you all aware of the quote by William Shakespeare that says, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts." Because I can't see all of you, I shall assume that everyone has heard this and everyone is nodding their heads. I can't see all of you, so I'll assume that you are. I was a geek growing up, and I was a part of multiple cultural clubs. My parents and I went to watch a movie or play every weekend ever since I was a child. I've inhaled books in a single setting, download music from pirated sites with my dad, and made mixtapes. So it wasn't a shocker that pop culture, music, films, and books defined my creative process. So I'm going to let you guys in on a trade secret. I did my undergrad in fashion communication and I had a very unique research method. I would first visualize the concept as a person. If you can see the visuals here, I'd give them characteristics, imagine their routine, build a day in their life, and understand how they move through the world. Sometimes I'd even dress like that person to physically embody the idea or create Spotify playlists to capture their emotional landscape. You know, I still remember I did a project on this TV show character from Euphoria. And I remember dressing up like this. I used to loiter around my college with a balloon in my hand. During the classes, I used to sit under the computer table. And my professors were really concerned because I was the goody two shoes student. So for me to behave like this was slightly absurd for them until I told them that this is my creative process and I'm a method actor. We did a ton of shoots back in the day. However, during lockdown, I couldn't shoot some of the visuals. So I started making these mixed media mood boards from whatever scraps I found at home. So, you know, I used to have these thoughts. I used to visualize, oh, the central character in this shot would wear this. I used to take scraps, say, from my pillowcases and stick it on and create visuals like that. And it was fun for a little while. But I did some real work, I can assure you. Let me take you through some of my styling work throughout the years. So, this concept that I created was called A Whole New World Looking Through the Glass. It was inspired by Aladdin, which is a character of a street rat going about their day, stealing things. Even their clothes, if you take a closer look, looks like they were cut from different pieces and stitched up to form something that was far from mundane. So I still remember I took a kurta, which is a traditional Indian garment, and kind of attached puffer sleeves to it with safety pins. So this is essentially what I did. But I'll tell you what I remembered from this shoot. I remember begging this family from this place in Delhi called Chandni Chowk to let me shoot in their house. The house had an old school charm to it, vibrant walls, exposed brick, traditional windows, and a massive rooftop area. So it was an amazing experience shooting it, and I thought that this would be a great way to let you in how I looked at concepts, how I looked at fashion and design. But I do have a favorite shoot. And let me tell you, it's not my favorite because the model cancelled and I had to step in. Please say that I resemble this person you see on screen when I later ask you, just to affirm me a bit. I've almost had equal parts of admiration and sadness while thinking of Marilyn Monroe, and she was the inspiration for this shoot. She saw success like no one hadn't for a while, but the pitfalls of working in an industry that's so exploitative outweighs the pros. The shoot was an ode to her, and I wanted the visuals to be glamorous, yet have a hidden sense of melancholy and somewhat camaraderie that only the viewers could understand. So I tried to create the basic Marilyn laugh, if you can see it here. And yeah, that was a bit from the shoot. One second. Hello. I think there's Yes, perfect. Okay, sorry for the delay. This is my next project, which was called The Sea of Fast Fashion. Was it some of my best work? Probably not. Would I have made the background less busy? For sure. But the entire process of scouting locations, convincing models and photographers to work for a student who wasn't paying you anything wasn't a walk in the park. I remember spray painting on this jacket. The central character in this frame was supposed to look lifeless in a sea of materialistic belongings, drowned by wants and greed. The makeup was blue to convey a sense of decay. So, before I tell you why I switched from fashion to marketing, let me tell you a bit about that moment of realization. I always knew that I loved fashion, but I felt that something was missing. I think I began feeling like that while looking at this fashion world through this rose tinted lens. Fast fashion, fast content, fast everything. Everything was visible, but nothing ever felt grounded. Stories were being told too quickly, frozen within a static frame, and I knew that I wanted to create something that could be seen, that could be felt, touched, remember. And that's where marketing came in. But let's just reimagine marketing for a while, okay? I believe that marketing is a language of expression. It's a way to amplify voices. It's a way to shape stories and legitimize narratives across cultures. But in the last few years, I've also seen how commercialization can flatten creativity and co opt ethics. In a world that is increasingly interconnected yet deeply divided, I became interested in marketing not as a tool that connects welfare, entertainment, and commerce, especially in the Indian context. The tension between visibility and exploitation is valid, and it became central to how I began to think about my work. So let's define marketing with four new paradigms. Create visibility for voices, stories, and narratives. Handle them with responsibility. Respond empathetically to audiences and keep expression at the forefront of it all. I'm going to quiz you guys on this. So please remember these four paradigms because that's how we're going to look at marketing in this new age world. Then I have to kind of introduce you guys to my dream team, which is marketing plus theater. It will always lead to social commerce, and I'll tell you why. I began noticing parallels between marketing and theater very early on. Theater is not passive. It demands presence, it relies on participation, embodiment, and emotional proximity. At its best, marketing does the same. Both theater and marketing don't just communicate ideas, they organize how people feel, gather, and participate. Both operate through these four spaces: attention, shared space, emotional resonance, and collective meaning making. Theater provides depth, marketing provides structure. When combined, They create social commerce that is participatory rather than transactional, generate value for many stakeholders, not just one seller, and allow people to earn a living because audiences are meaningfully engaged, not because they are manipulated. However, I did know that I came in with a set of skills and intent to create rich experiences, but what I didn't possess is the knowledge of methodologies, technical frameworks, and the ability to conduct holistic industry research. Therefore, there was a gap. And how did I bridge that gap, might I tell you? I bridged it by joining an agency as a brand executive. Was it a good idea? Only time will tell, or probably I'll tell you guys in 5, 7 minutes. So I worked for a women's sexual wellness brand, and I think it brought me out of my shell in the best way possible. I was demanding during client pitches, really well versed in what my target audience needed, wanted, or lacked. Contrary to what you guys must have thought, this is me shooting a reel, not me crying at the workplace. But yeah, that also happened. I helped strategize and execute this concept called the Virtual Contraceptive Museum. We worked with youth driven sex ed platforms to carry out audience vox pops or interviews. We collaborated with artists to produce pieces on the history of contraception. And we did end up winning the Best Co Creation Strategy Award for this campaign. While I learned a lot through exposure training and mostly by making mistakes at my workplace, I could see that my creative lens was diminishing day by day due to the unhealthy work environment. I did have the privilege, aka the savings to quit, and I know everybody doesn't, but I had entered the industry with energy and curiosity, and I could slowly feel it fading away. And I felt alienated from my work, from myself. So I knew that I had to take a step back and reevaluate. That's when I decided to pursue a master's degree in marketing. I wanted to become a student again. However, there was another challenge at bay because what's a good story without some obstacles? I had rescued a dog who was battling severe health complications around the same time, which meant that relocating to study wasn't an option. Contrary to what you might think, what drew me to MA marketing at LSDM was not convenience. It was the curriculum. It was experience based learning, the rigorous research driven modules, the focus on sustainability and future of work, the interdisciplinary thinking that allowed marketing to intersect with culture, society, and ethics, the access to global resources, and the academic grounding through the UCA tie up for sprinkles on the cake. LSDM didn't promise answers, it promised frameworks. And I already told you I had a major thing for those. That being said, entering the program came with real fears. I was learning across cultures through a screen. I was sitting in India while engaging with Western academic frameworks. I worried about whether I could sharpen my cultural intelligence without physical immersion. There were also skill gaps, particularly around academic research, tools, while I wasn't new to marketing, I did pursue a degree in fashion communication. This was a different way to approach it altogether. What I didn't anticipate was how productive this discomfort could be. So let's talk about my turning point. One of my earliest projects during the strategic marketing module, which is a part of the MA marketing program, involved developing a 360-degree brand book. And guess the space that I chose? I chose women's sexual wellness. In India, this is still a deeply taboo category. At my previous job, although I was working for a sexual wellness brand, this talks around products or certain needs of our target audience was often met with discomfort or euphemism. The professors at LSDM, however, treated my work as work, critically, rigorously, and without moral panic. I received honest feedback on strategy, positioning, and execution. I think that's when I realized that things kind of fit. It showed me that empathy and academics could coexist. However, what LSDM gave me was not a single outcome, but a way of working. I began to see myself as a multifaceted storyteller who was able to move across writing, physical spaces, strategy, and culture. I do have some key learnings that I want to share with you all, and I hope I can help you out with these in some way. Firstly, have an experiential and malleable approach to new learning methods, cultures, and environments. If you're not adaptable, then it constricts you in a space where growth does not happen. Monotony, surprisingly, can be a catalyst for creativity if you allow your ideas to deepen through repetition and discipline. Empathy towards the world can lead to real problem solving. I do work in animal welfare on the side, which makes me a rather, I would necessarily say that I have a lot of compassion for animals, for people, for a lot of issues around the world. And for once in my life, I believe that I can pour it into my work and other side of things, which is a gift always. Decision making needs to account for wider fiscal and systemic forces like political, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors. And lastly, our focus needs to shift from achievement led milestones to value led goals that are scalable and sustainable. I'll kind of take you through this at the end of it when I talk about my 2026 goals. And I think you will kind of see what I'm talking about by value led goals. Then we come down to my thesis. As you all know, I spoke about how theater and marketing can be used to expand on social commerce in a country like India. And thank God, LSDM gave me the frameworks required to actually turn this into my thesis project. So my thesis became the point where these initial inclinations merged with these learnings and analytical methodologies. My dream enterprise, Aina, which is a Hindi word for mirror, explored how experiential theater could be leveraged as a tool to create social impact amongst Generation Z and millennials in India. So I'll tell you why I chose the word Aina. Aina means mirror, right? And mirror is a reflection of everything that we see. And I felt that that's how theater works. Theater is a reflection of societal ideals about gender dynamics, everything in the world. And that's what I wanted this brand or this enterprise to be. The aim was to create immersive experiences that triggered multiple senses, allowed for audience involvement in the storytelling plot, turning spectators into spect actors. So, this concept of turning spectators into spect actors actually comes from Augusto Boal's Theatre of the Oppressed and the Brechtian epic theatre. What they used to do is they used to create mock legislative courts that challenged socio political beliefs and subverted traditional power dynamics by offering the audiences avenues for intervention. The core issue, however, with these traditional activist theatre forms globally and within India was that they were not commercially scalable. They invited more dissent than participation, and they did exclude marginalized voices. Let's talk a bit about consumer insights. In the book Experience Economy by Pine and Gilmore, I did read up a lot on it while doing the literary review for this thesis project. And it stresses on how consumers increasingly seek transformation, not just entertainment. Personalization, purposeful engagement, and memorability are identified as key drivers of customer value. Only 34% of Indian brands invest in immersive strategies, indicating a clear market opening. And wherever there's a clear market opening, you know your product has to fit into that. Research shows that Indian Gen Z and millennials prefer experiences over products and engage strongly with cause led content. But they often lack meaningful avenues for participation. Aina bridges this gap by offering emotionally resonant, co created experiences around themes like gender, caste, mental health, consent, identity, while making it palatable as a form of infotainment. Let's look at our main offerings. Aina is designed as a fully immersive experience where narrative, soundscapes, and sensory design work together to create emotional engagement. However, the experiences don't end with the performance. Post show echo chambers, sensory souvenirs, and curated music allows audiences to reflect and stay connected, while impact is tracked through feedback loops that capture emotional and social responses. The pricing model is intentionally inclusive. Tiered pricing ranges from student access to patron circles supported by subsidized NGOs and student partnerships were of primary importance. Pricing remains flexible, adapting to venue, performer scale, and thematic sensitivity. My literary review had offered that a lot of these immersive experiences weren't very affordable, which is why I tried to make it as affordable as possible while I address problems in each of the aspects of the marketing mix. Aina begins with pilot cities like Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore, using non traditional venues such as rooftops, old buildings, galleries, and co working spaces. Modular stage setups allows the experience to remain intimate and adaptable across locations. Promotion would focus on storytelling rather than spectacle creation using Instagram Reels, collaboration with performance artists and activists. Spotify audio trailers, QR coded flyers, podcasts, and thematic mini zines to build curiosity before the show were also thought of. People and processes are central to INA. I mentioned that marginalized voices were often ignored in activist forms of theater, which is why, as an organization, from a hiring perspective as well, queer, neurodiverse, and underrepresented talent will be taken into account, and the hiring process will be extremely ethical and inclusive. And we will also have trauma informed facilitators and volunteers trained in consent led participation, because when you're talking about audience participation in immersive experiences, you need to have a group of people who are sensitized to certain problems or issues that the audience members or even the staff might have. Interactive booking systems will allow audiences to choose narrative paths, while AR invites and pre show activations build anticipation. We will also have post show debriefs and reflection spaces to ensure closure and care. When it comes to physical evidence, we also thought of including haptic tokens, which are basically sensory devices, and handmade zines that trigger the sense of scent or have some sort of texture, and as well as artist thank you cards. These will act as tangible proof of experience and impact. This was the thesis project, but I do want to take you through some of the notable projects I have done during my entire stint at LSDM. So I did create the concept for this VR first dating app called Get a Room. As many of you know, it's a playful nod to the classic phrase said to overly affectionate couples, like get a room, because literally you need to get a room and this app and you're set, because it's a VR dating app. So you can enjoy the intimacy of dating, the security of dating from the comforts of your room. The name reflects the app's unique positioning as a platform that uses machine learning to match users with highly compatible partners and creates hyper realistic dates that one can enjoy, again, as I said, from the comforts of their home. You also have the option and access to a wide range of outfits that you can wear on these VR dates. The slogan, bringing dates to your doorstep, reinforces the seamless blend of convenience, security, intimacy, and immersive connections. So, I've already told you all how films play a huge role in my life. Horror films are my all time favorite. I've always looked at horror and romance as defining genres that reflect societal ideals, gender dynamics, and are indicative of feminist waves. One of my research papers was on the topic of performative femininity in horror during key cinematic eras and its impact on consumer perception and the beauty industry. So I do want to share some interesting theories that I found during my research. There's this theory called Malvi-Creed's theory, which kind of frames female hunger, whether be it for food, ambition, or desire, as monstrous. Because every time a woman has hunger for something that goes outside of societal ideals, it means that she has agency, and that's a scary thought. And that's done beautifully by films like Rosemary's Baby, Jennifer's Body. If any of you are familiar with these horror films, then I hope you're nodding along as I'm saying all this. This Mulvey's Creed's monstrous theory also aligns with the also aligns with the male gaze theory, where women in cinema are traditionally passive objects of desire. Horror used to glorify frail women, and now I think horror has moved into a space where they are more subversive with their tropes. They kind of reinforce the tropes, also subvert from it. There was this film which became really popular last year. It was called Substance, and it kind of explored how women see age as horrifying, because that's how the society has projected or represented aging always for women. And I think it was a beautiful film. So I've included all these films and their impact on the beauty industry, the sales of certain products, and their impact on the women of that generation in this project. The next project that I did was a part of the marketing simulation module. So I designed this brand that was called Not So Dairy, and it challenges the idea that good nutrition has to come at the cost of animals or accessibility. The brand offers fortified, affordable plant based milk and yogurt that delivers dairy like benefits without animal exploitation. Human health, animal welfare, and sustainability aren't trade offs, they're interconnected. That belief is captured in the tagline because cows deserve a break. It's light in tone but serious in intent. If you look at the visuals, I'm not a designer, so please, if I made some design errors, do not hold it against me. But I wanted to capture images of cows on a vacation because, again, it's a dairy free product. So I don't want to end this session with what has happened and what could have been, but instead, let's talk about the future. I know it's a very personal thing, but I did want to take you all through my 2026 vision board. In 2026, I don't imagine a specific job title. I just imagine a way of living that I want to manifest. Professionally, I see myself working with creative community first organizations, brands, individuals, and institutions that are willing to take risks. You are way too creative for a 9 to 5. That's what I keep on telling myself. I'm interested in work that exists in physical spaces like events, installations, experiences that demand presence rather than passive consumption. These formats are the ones that will resist disposability. They ask people to slow down and participate. Travel is also a huge part of my vision board, not as an escape, but as a cultural exchange. I think I've gotten the whiff of cultural exchange, and now I do want to travel a lot, whether be it for work or whether be it for the simple pleasure of just meeting new people, reading new books from different countries, visiting places, and just like being in a place that's not home. Being in different geographies sharpens how one reads context, nuance, and power. It feeds cultural intelligence, which I now see as a core professional skill. Alongside this, writing is really important to me. I do want to send in some of my articles or creative pieces to international publications. And I feel that writing allows for so much reflection. When I quit my first marketing gig, I remember writing this entire series of articles on how unemployment or employment, for that matter, in today's day and age, looks a lot like a situationship. And I've drawn ideals from these very weird dating words that we use, ghosting, and how there are parallels between unemployment, the process of looking for a job, and these things. So I do want to attempt more of these op-ed pieces and submit these articles. So if you see there's a Sex and the City reference with Carrie sitting in front of her laptop, hopefully that'll be me this year. Creatively, I want to make work that's expressive and playful, especially through music videos and visual content. I love making music videos. Every time I hear a song, I've already visualized an entire video, what outfits I'm going to wear, where I can shoot it. Shooting in public in Delhi is a major nuisance, which is why I have to do it very tactfully. But this year, I'll make it a priority because joy, movement, and humor are not frivolous. They're cultural tools, and sometimes the body can think in ways that language cannot. I also want to read a lot more books than I did this year. One fun fact about me, I do host book clubs nearby, and because of that, I think somehow since I became a host, I've started reading less because I'm so concerned with what other people are reading and discussing their books. I've kind of put a pause on my own. So I do want to read a lot more books this year. I also have a section in my library, my home library, which is called Unhinged Books, written by unhinged women about unhinged women. So you can see that it's not palatable for everybody, but yeah, these are the kind of books that I want to consume this year. And the most important thing is I want a life and a career that can be sustained emotionally, physically, and financially. Because you see, I've included pictures with of a girl and her dog. I do want to establish stronger bonds with people in my family, my friends. I do want to spend more quality time with them, devoid of any digital distractions. Environment matters too. So this year, I want to manifest calm, organized spaces and people who can hold empathy. I want to surround myself with people who care about the community, who care about the world, for animals, for ecosystems that we inhabit, and because it's a way of living, it's not a side interest. And last but not the least, I do want to take care of my physical health. I'm a dancer, so I do want to continue dancing and engage in other physical activities like Pilates and stuff like that. Okay, there is another point, which is the most important. I didn't want to miss on that, and that's financial independence. Financial independence is a major goal of mine this year. I do want to move to a new city. Well, so I hope that I get the opportunity that's needed for my move there. And I think financial literacy is also very important. I want to educate myself with terms of investing and other things, and hopefully that'll push me to make more ethical choices and support the responsibilities that I hold. I start with this vision because it reveals the kind of thinking my work already demanded, even before I had the tools to articulate it. I hope I was able to create a space that felt like listening to a friend go on and on about their life. Last but not the least, this is something that I want to leave you all with. You need to stop seeing marketing as a tool, seeing it as you taking up space as an artist. And I hope that thought remains with you at the end of this session. Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm back. You can see me. Yeah.
Many thanks to you, Ritwika. It was very interesting to experience and hear all that experience from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do any of you have any questions? I would love to hear what are your thoughts and everything. Please be kind to this soul as well, because I've been speaking for a while. But yes, I would love to hear all your questions.
Well, Ritwika, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thank you for this exceptional presentation. I am the course leader for design, but from a design perspective, it was quite vivid visually, and I enjoyed looking at the compositions which you've placed in front of us. It was also very pedagogic, your presentation for me personally. I learned a lot about how um, the self moves dynamically between different um, different disciplines, right? In the sense from theater to fashion to marketing, and also a personal insight. So it was very interesting to see how your personality has manifested across these very different but in a way connected outcomes throughout your journey, which you have presented so well. Um, Before we get to the audience to ask questions, I just have a few observations, a few queries regarding, first of all, the brand. I love the name Aina, and I think it fits so well as a naming convention, because it, as you said, it literally means reflection. And in many ways, brands reflect contemporaneity or contemporary reality within which they are positioned. However, and I would like to learn more about this from you, is how you converge theater, fashion, and marketing. And theater and fashion are very easy to understand, right?
Yeah.
Because both have this aspect of expression, creative expression.
Yeah.
And also both have an aspect of message. Marketing, also, the conventional understanding of marketing is that it also has much to do with the conveying of a message. However, in the case of theater and in the case of fashion, and especially regarding the examples which you have presented, there is a message which is somewhat political in nature, given the
Yeah.
current circumstances.
Yeah.
However, when it comes to marketing, uh, given its dependence on corporations, do
Mm.
you feel that it would be a challenge to implement the concerns in terms of message, and which you have raised so well during your presentation? Do you think there would be a challenge or a backlash, let's say, from the industry? Maybe you have already faced that in the work which you have
Mm.
undertaken in the industry. So, how do you or what are the challenges, or what are the points do you reckon are tricky in this case when implementing in a real world basis? And what are the ways in which you have or you can mitigate this sort of conflict?
Mm. So towards the beginning, when I think I got the idea for Aina around 4 years back, and I would like to say that the political climate was a little different, and also I was blissfully unaware to a really great extent. And so I thought that while the earlier forms of activist theater that I've stated during my presentation, they did get a lot of dissent because I am associating, when I say marketing, I associate multiple sensory points in the experiential theater, say through tactility, through audience intervention. And when you kind of gamify the entire experience, I think it becomes more palatable for people. But looking at the current political climate, I think because we are nowadays, even if you speak your mind, it could get you, for lack of a better word, detained at this point. So I do get that there will be a lot of challenges because we are going to talk about gender, we are going to talk about identity. We will, however, like I think if this comes into effect in the near future, I think religion, caste, and everything is something that we will slowly ease into. There are certain topics which I know from the get go, if it's during the incubatory period, to be specific, if we introduce those topics, it's not going to be like this idea in itself is not going to be funded by corporations, and it won't be as scalable. So I think I'll slowly ease into that. But the other thing is something that I would like to tell you as a professional as well. I There are certain political, cultural, and social ideals that I hold, and I have never worked with any brand, even freelance with any brand that I don't agree with from an ethical standpoint. And I don't think if I kind of work on creating an enterprise of my own, I know it'll be difficult because most of the larger corporations are owned by people who have a certain standpoint or a certain belief. So I know it'll be difficult, but um, I do want to work with ethical investors and people who share, who value other living beings, value society, who don't associate value with, say, where a person comes from, uh, their economical background, their caste, and everything. So that's something. And I acknowledge that when I say this, I come from a very privileged space, and things will look very different when you're on the grassroots level, actually doing this and interacting with people and getting people on board. I think one of the biggest challenges that I'll face is that I have an inclusive hiring process that I want to inculcate, which will include people from all spectrums. So I think when people see a company composed of people that are not palatable to them, I think that'll be a lot for people to digest in. But as I said, I think there are many organizations and particularly individuals per se. There's this enterprise called Crow, which also does experiential theater, but their storytelling is very different. It's more like whimsical, and it's a very different way of looking at experiential theater. However, I know the owner of Crow personally, and I have spoken to her about investments and how they got spaces or how they got people roped into it so that they could kind of make this make this a proper functioning enterprise. And she did speak a lot about ethical investments and how she kind of got people. She, I think, pitched for 2 3 years straight and got rejected a lot. And I think that's something that I will go through, but I don't want to compromise my integrity in the slightest to get investments or to get this from incubation onto the masses. So yeah, that's
Okay. That's a very interesting answer. It also shines a lot of light on the fact that within the scope of your work,
mm,
there's a very thin line of difference between theater and marketing.
yeah.
Um, However, the value it might generate uh, might be different, or the basis on which the value would be generated would be different. People would come to
Mm,
watch theater for, the thing which I keep thinking about, or which I kept thinking about while hearing a presentation was street theater.
mm,
Street theater was always more dedicated to social issues, contemporary
mm,
social issues,
mm,
and in that sense, perhaps Aina would be more aligned with, say, for example, a Jananatya Manch or any other
mm.
particular enterprise in that sense. Uh, my query was that in this regard is how would you find funding, or how would you generate funding through this? I mean, what would be the kind of clients or partners or collaborators that you would require to align with?
So, while I was doing the target audience research, right, I have different payment payment paradigms, because again, there will be. I'm also looking at generating a wider audience out of art enthusiasts and like gallery enthusiasts, and those are people who want to kind of invest in new experiences. There was something called the patron circle, which I mentioned. So the patron circle will comprise mostly of people who are already like art enthusiasts, and they will be a part of our testing phases. They will there will be a certain fee to it. They will have access to our haptic technology and everything, and the feedback loops. We do want to kind of tap into that market, so that we do get finances while making. So because if we are having a tiered pricing model, and if we want to offer a subsidized pricing to say students, we do need people to join the patron circle and other at other price points, so that we are able to achieve that. So that's something that we want to do. We have, while researching, I also looked at some NGO partnerships. There are a lot of like cultural grants. I don't know the current landscape of it in India, because a few years back, one of my friends, she works in a sex education space. She did apply for a cultural grant, because again, she was in a sexual education space. It got rejected. So the entire pitch has to be designed in a way that's more um, again, that screams Indian culture to them, or that has elements of traditional Indian theater to it, for the people to us grant us that money. But there are a lot of grants, and there are a lot of NGOs that do partner up for events, at least to so that we can get like these spaces as barter. What a lot of experiential theater groups do is they get sanctions on abandoned buildings, so that they don't have to spend a lot. The environment in itself becomes a character, and they add slight lighting to it or certain elements to it. They don't spend a lot on renting out the place and decking it up. And I want that sort of like ruggish feeling, uh, which kind of travels across locations. So I think that's how I've thought about the location bit and the grant bit, and also partnerships.
Okay.
Again, the ground reality is can be vastly different. I have spoken to a few people, but again, as I said, the kind of issues that I want to focus on can be a little tough to break into in this political climate. So I do have a lot
Okay.
more, yeah, research to do in that aspect, but this is kind of the baseline of it.
Sarah asks a set of three
Yeah.
questions. I think the
Yeah.
second question, what were the main methodological challenges encountered during data collection? I think you have addressed to some respect what you were just explaining. Are there any other challenges which you faced during your project period regarding data collection?
100%, like the sample size and the kind of people was a huge challenge. I did try to have focus group discussions and got people from different um, say social stratas, economic stratas to talk about it. But the kind of uh, i I actually realized that the kind of opinions that I hold mostly come from people of privileged backgrounds, because we can sit here in our households and say and have the privilege to talk about these issues and be vocal about it. And what I noticed was I had a group of people who were my house helps, daughter and her relatives, and they were very skeptical about talking about any of these things. And even the hiring process, when I said that, if I launch something like this and I want to, if these are the things that one of them was an artist, I said कि अगर मैं आपको इसके लिए hire करना चाहूँ, so if you do you want to create like a installation for this, is that something that you'll be open to? And their main thing was, oh, but wouldn't this be taken as this, or but why this is not even, will this even pay enough, and things like that. And it kind of made me so aware of my own privilege, because these are not the little concerns, or not the things that I thought of. I had this idealistic way that I wanted to create an immersive experience that granted people access to immersive experiences, but I didn't realize how people from different backgrounds will kind of relate to it. So the sample size bit that Sarah mentioned, I think I faced a huge challenge with data collection that way. I think most people, I was also caught up in an echo chamber for the most part, because I was kind of hearing what I said back, and until I kind of spoke to a lot of people, I didn't even uh, make note of that. Then the other question is, why
Well,
did you?
there is the first question I think is quite interesting because, and that's one of the questions which I had as well, was because you are introducing something which perhaps uh, has a lot of interest in other generations apart from millennials and Gen Z, right?
Mm,
Well, at least in the case of my parents, I think they were the last generation which would consider theater as a sort of a regular form of entertainment or regular form of awareness.
yeah,
Um, why did you choose these two particular generations where, of course, there is a theatrical aspect to a lot of things in their lives, but
yeah,
when it comes to hardcore theater, and that's what you're bringing in that sense, that kind of experiential
yeah.
understanding which you're trying to bring is perhaps also equally applicable to other generations.
So they were a part of my secondary like target audience list that I had presented during the project. But the reason why I didn't want to include them as my target audience was because again, the topics are a bit radical, like that I want to introduce during the plays. And the topics are a little radical, and it's the gamified way of kind of dealing with it, which I think that Generation Z and millennials would engage with more. There's also a certain degree of physicality to it, in terms of like we I do have plans on creating spaces which will be more accessible to specially able people within this immersive theater, but I don't have like proper written down plans for the same. There is a certain degree of physicality to the activities towards the involvement, which is why I think these two were the main target groups that I targeted. And as I said, the kind of topics that I want to deal with are a little radical in the essence. And I think radicalism is something that Gen Z particularly, again, it could be an echo chamber from the people I interact with on a daily basis and the kind of people I have surrounded myself with. But we do have a lot of radical thoughts, and I think that's echoed back when I put it on social media as well. I did post about this, by the way, that I'm planning a thesis project on something like this. How many of you will be interested? And I do have a public account, so I do. There are a lot of people who I work in animal welfare, so do I do have access to a lot of people, and I majorly received like a very positive response from this particular group, which is kind of why I was inclined towards it.
Okay, so there is a difference in values in that sense, and the values which your enterprise upholds most applies most to these two. All right. When you were showcasing the rationalization of your joining firstly the industry and then LSDM, you spoke about gap in skills.
Yeah,
And I think that's where Sarah's question is coming from. I mean, in terms of skills,
yeah,
um, you developed quite a comprehensive project, but alongside, what were the kind of analytical, creative, strategic skills
yeah.
that either you developed new or honed during your learning experience?
Mm. So there were a lot of tools. I remember professor had provided me. Pestle was one of them. I did a lot of SWOT analysis at my last job and everything, but I only looked at the industry I was working on. I didn't look at how any event in the world creates a ripple effect. And while I was doing the Pestle analysis, I kind of looked at those factors. That's why in one of my learnings, I've written that there are a lot of systemic forces which are involved in whatever work you do, and it's important to kind of get down and understand the effect that it can happen that it can have on your project. For instance, when I was doing the VR dating app, right, I looked at environmental concerns, because again, any sort of like AI technology and everything, it drains a lot of resources. And there are other alternatives like green technology. These are things that I wouldn't have known. I would have just created a brand earlier. This is what I wanted to do. I want to create a VR dating app. It's because, oh, people can enjoy dating from the comforts of their home. They get access to technology, but I wouldn't have thought of its impact on the environment as a whole, on, say, like even say from a security perspective. Obviously, when you're doing a VR dating app, you will look into security, right? But I kind of looked into AI algorithms that will code words that you can kind of instill that block certain people, or that won't allow certain kinds of discretion or data getting leaked. I wouldn't have done that earlier. Maybe I wasn't this holistic with my approach towards research before I kind of got into LSDM, and I was a little intimidated by it. There were so many tools. It If you simplify it, it's easy, right? But when you hear about it, this analysis, that analysis, and you just think Ansof's matrix. Like if I hear about it, I'm like, I have to now create a matrix. But then kind of when you get into it and it becomes a part of how you approach research. So I think that's what LSDM did for me. And that's why there was a gap, but I tried to fill it up as much as possible.
And it reflects in your final outcome, in that sense. Well, I think we don't have much time, so I will open the floor to our audience if they have any questions, queries. Okay, we have a question from Dmitro. What is your favorite project so far, and why?
I do have a favorite. It's the simulation of like performative femininity in horror films. I'm a huge horror fanatic. I watch horror films to relax. And when I knew that I had to do like a research paper, I knew that I had to do something related to horror. I did so much research on feminist horror theories, how women are perceived. I think I went down a rabbit hole on how pregnancy has been treated as an element of horror, because it's also commentary on women's reproductive rights. And I just went down a rabbit hole and had like a lot of fun with it. I still remember emailing professor that, I'm not getting data for the beauty industry sales because it's that long back. I was so honed in on the just like watching horror movies and being like a crazy fan about it. I never realized that I have to get actual data to draw parallels. And he kind of explained how I could still like look at say the actresses of that time, the people of that time, the kind of brands at that time that were popular, instead of just getting numbers, and how I can correlate that. So I think that was my favorite project so far. I had a lot of fun with it.
Great. Any further queries? Any further questions? Sarah, Subhashish?
Um, so, well, since I am a designer, so when I was going like observing this entire presentation, so my viewpoint was from the design point of view. There was just only one. I wouldn't say it's a suggestion, but something that you know when we work together or the brainstorming happens, so we get ideas. So
Yeah.
when you presented that first slide in which you said that the inspiration was Aladdin, and when you said that the shooting had been done in Delhi, so there were two characters from the movie or the story of Aladdin, which I felt that it could be incorporated in that picture. One is that monkey, and the other one is that parrot, which is actually available in Delhi. In Delhi, we get a lot of people who use the parrot to tell your fortune and the monkeys are easily. So if you could have arranged those two, then I think it would have put a more direct, like it was easy to connect with Aladdin when there was a picture with the lamp.
Got
So
it.
those two
Mhm.
character would have, put extra points to that slide. So that's the only thing that I would like to share.
See, visually, I completely agree with you. The thing is, I do not support like using animals in my work in the slightest. I think that it's very torturous to them, even if, it's just like them, the idea of them being confined also, I get really like hurt seeing it. So I wouldn't ever incorporate an animal into my work. That was probably one of the major reasons. And also because I'm really scared of monkeys. But I do like visually, I do think that that's a beautiful way of like, incorporating certain elements from the original tale for sure.
Great. Thank you for that suggestion, Subhashish. Um, well, I guess if there are no further questions, well, I can congratulate again Ritvika
Ritvika
for
for
such a
such a
wonderful
wonderful
presentation.
presentation. There is a comment from Dimitri.
One
One
second.
second.
Sorry.
I see.
Okay, there is a fun comment from Dimitrio. As you are being a creator, how do you think near future with generative AI tech will affect your creative opportunities? It's a very interesting question, but I think you will be in a good place to answer it.
So I think in terms of the kind of work that I wanted to do, at my last agency, I did work a lot on brand strategy. And the thing is, nowadays, people have these programs in place, right? And they train AI to kind of do the brand research from the get go, which kind of takes away a lot out of your job. So people are losing opportunities for it. But this year, especially as I mentioned, I do want to work in more community led brands. There are a lot of brands that host like these spaces for like-minded individuals, say zine clubs, book clubs, certain activities and everything, which are more to do with physical installations and everything. So if AI's help in terms of target audience research or industry research helps a lot, but at the end of the day, when it comes to like the on-ground work, I think that is also that is something that will be in my department, and I could work alongside AI instead of AI stealing my opportunities that way.
Yeah, and I think this is where Pine and Gilmore come in to the picture
Yeah.
in
Yes.
terms of experiential economy.
I think AI
Um,
cannot create memorability. That's what humans are for.
yes, exactly.
Mm.
All right. So on that note, I will close this masterclass. Thank you again, Ritvika,
Thank you.
for your extremely interesting presentation, insightful um, discussion, and well, I wish you all the best, and I hope you achieve each of your 2026 goals and beyond.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone,
much.
for attending.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Thank you. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.